Alright, so hello everyone, this is Haven and this is part 3 of the Qavimator animating series, and on this one I'm going to show you how to make a very simple pose, and I'm going to show you how to use a prop. So the first thing that we want to do is open up one of the beginning files we made. Remember, we made a male one and a female one to start our projects with. So I'm going to go to File and Open, and I'll open my female one. And you'll see what happens instantly is I've gone from 30 frames to 3 frames. And you can see that down here, 2 out of 3. I'm on frame number 2. Remember, frame number 1 is the protected frame. We don't want to change anything there. Frame number 2 is where we're going to create our pose. Right now you can see that every one of these lines has a key to it, has information stored on it, and that is the +1 that we did on all the X rotations. So if you see every bone that I click, I get an X of 1 degree. Okay, so now when we make our pose, if there is a joint that we don't give a rotation to, SL will still read it. Remember, if we don't give every one of these joints at least some little rotation, then SL will not see it as being used in the animation, and that joint will continue to play the animation that your avatar is already doing. Okay, so I'm going to come in here and I'm going to make a sit pose. So what I want to do is I want to bring in a prop. And in the props tab, you see we've got 4 different shapes that we can use. We can either put these in our scene or we can attach them. We're not going to attach in this video. We'll do that in another one. But for now, I'm just going to go ahead and add a cube or a box. The box pops in and you see that you can select it by left clicking on it. I can go back and forth between things. And I have arrows so I can pull this around. These arrows are great and they almost work as you expect them to. If I take the red and I pull it to the left or to the right, it will move left or right. If I take the green and pull it up or down, it will move up and down, as you can see. So up and down. And I know you can't see my mouse, but I'm moving it in those directions. Now if I cam around and I click on the cube, and I figure if I pull on the blue, it's going to move. But you can see it really doesn't move very well at all. You actually have to move your mouse up and down when you grab the blue. And then it moves much better for us. Alright, something else that I didn't cover was how to get around in your scene. If you left mouse click anywhere, you can drag your scene 3D. So you can orbit around where you want to. So you can get the angle that you need to. You can also hold your shift button, left mouse, and you can drag your scene around 2-dimensionally. Okay? So that's how we get around in there. And of course this button again is to center our scene. But I'm going to cam around the back of her. I'm going to take the cube and I'm going to move it behind her like a seat. Now, in real life, when you have anything that you sit on, generally comes up behind the knees. That's the height of it. So what we want to do is we want to bring this just behind the knees. And we can actually bring that up just a little bit. Alright, now that's good for her to sit on as an idea of where the body placement should be. But you can also make this bigger, so you can, let's say if you want to have a bench sit and you want her hand resting on the seat. If you made this bigger, then you could have an area for her hand to rest on as well. So you can come here and in the scale area, you can click your up and down arrows to scale this in the different directions or along the different axes, or you can rotate it as well. So right now, just making it a little bit longer is going to work just fine for me. So there we go. Now I'm ready to begin moving her. But before I do, let's talk about hierarchy for a moment. Hierarchy on the actual avatar is what bones move with what bones, or what joints move with which joints. So if you were to take the hips here and move them or rotate them, the entire body would move with it. So this is the top of the hierarchy. You move this, everything else is affected. The next point in the hierarchy could be the abdomen. If you move the abdomen, the whole upper body is going to move. Do you see that? All right. Next is the chest. If you move the chest up and outward along the arms, of course, is going to move. So I think you're seeing how this works. The collarbones, if you move them, then the whole arm works, but none of the rest moves, but none of the rest of the body does. So you see how that goes. Okay, so the same goes true with the neck. The neck is a hierarchy for the head. The thighs are the higher of the leg joints, either side. So that's how that works. And I always suggest that when you begin working with an animation, move the actual joints in order of their hierarchy. So we would want to move the hips first to get them where we want them. So I'm going to come here and I will click the hips, and now I'm going to move it down onto the box because that's where I want her sitting. So I'm just going to lower this, and maybe about, we'll go with 30, maybe 29. All right. And I'm going to move her backwards a little bit. So we'll take the Z. Oh, I did a rotation. So that's not what I wanted to do. So let me just undo that for a moment. So I'm going to take the Z and I'm going to move her back just a tiny bit. Maybe that's too much. So minus 3. We'll start there. Okay, then it comes to actually positioning the rest of the body. So you can take each joint and you can rotate it till it's where you want it to be. And of course, when you start up here, it works easier because I've moved this one. Now I can move this one. And then I could move the foot if I wanted to. If you were to move the foot first and then move the bones going upward, then your foot's not going to be actually where you want it anyways. Now you see that she's in the floor here, so you'll definitely want to take the bone and lift it up a little bit higher and start adjusting these as you need them to be. There is another little trick of doing things here. Let me change this to put her back a little bit. To making some of your animation posing a little bit quicker or easier. And that is by using the ability to move two mirrored parts at the same time. So let me put this joint back to its default real quick. Alright, so if you have one of them selected and you hold your shift key and double click on its mirrored part. Well, there we go. They turn yellow. Sorry about that. I was holding my control key on accident. So here now, when you rotate this, you'll see that both of them move in unison. They're symmetrical. Okay. Now this is great to get a pose started. Maybe to start getting body parts where you want them to be. But you want to remember that the body is not symmetrical. So when you do something like this, make sure that you come in and you tweak one, in each one on its own as well. So when you, and I keep, let's see, doing something like this. Okay. So now you can see they're very robotic looking because they're symmetrical. They're exactly the same placement or rotations from the body as the other ones are. So always come in here and just give them an extra little tweak to make them look, you know, more natural, more real. I mean, it's just a pose and it's static, but it really does matter a lot. Okay, so something else that I'm going to do is I'm going to bring these close to the legs, but I'm not touching the legs with them, as you can see. Maybe I'll move this one just a little bit more, and that's because I want to show you something later on. Okay, so that one's not touching the body. Let's go ahead and just bring this one up. And we will... Oops. So we just want to get a simple pose here. And the thing is that when you're animating, and this is actually not all that great of one, when you're animating, try to be as natural as you can. You know, look at pictures, look at images. Have somebody sit for you, and you can use them as basically guinea pigs. Make them sit there and take reference photos if you want to, which is so easy with cameras on our phones and stuff these days. Okay, so there's a very simple sit, and we are done with that. Now, when it comes to an actual pose, we're not making a one frame pose. We're actually going to be making an animation. And so if you take this to the end, you'll see that the avatar hasn't moved. The last frame is going to be the same as this one for us, okay? So you can see that I'm going back and forth between the two, but the avatar is not moving at all. So that's good. And we can adjust our frames per second down here. We don't really need them to be anything, really. No matter how fast or slow they go, it's going to remain the same because they're the same pose in both of these frames. We want to remember these numbers for later on when we upload into Second Life, and I'll show you that. But basically what this is Qavimator will determine where an animation loops based on a frame number, whereas Second Life decides where to loop a pose based on the percentage, how far into it and how far at the end of it do you want to loop. So that's what these numbers are for, and they're always this for a pose that's, you know, the 2 frames, 2 and 3 long. Okay, so that's done, and we can come up here and we can go to export at for Second Life. Now, if we had just made this fresh from scratch, you would have to save it first and then come back and export for Second Life. So let me go ahead and save this for a second. So I'm going to click on export for Second Life. Alright. Now, if I go to new, and let's say I've done all my work in here, okay? So I'm done making my pose. When I go to File, you'll see Export for Second Life is not there. I mean, it's there, but it's grayed out. You can't click on it. You have to save it first. After you save it and you come back to File a second time, you will then get the export for Second Life, okay? So that's pretty important. Now what we're going to do is we are going to go into Second Life, and I'm going to show you how to upload this and how to preview it. And what I'll do is I will come back in here and I will reopen this one then. Oh, that's not the one. Did I not save it? Alright, there it is. I was just clicking on the wrong file. So also I want to just tell you that when you're making poses or animations in Qavimator, don't close down the program until you're done bringing it into Second Life, because with it open and with previewing it in Second Life, you can see really easily what needs to be fixed. Okay, so here we are in the beta grid, and I'm going to show you how to do that animation. So we go up to the build button, and in the build button, I had to open that thing. Go to upload and animation, and you can see here this is the one that I saved from Qavimator, so I'll just double click on it and I automatically start playing it. But when it plays through one time, you see my avatar pops back to where it was. Well, that's because I don't have this looped. Remember, we're made an animation. We didn't just make a play one time thing. So you have to click on the loop button. After you click on loop, you can click on the camera, and now it plays it through for you. But you'll see that it stays. It just keeps looping around and around and around. Okay, so let's go through this. First thing that you have is the name of it. You can name this anything you like. The second thing that you can put here is maybe what priority you gave it, maybe how many frames per second it plays, or how long of an animation it is, if it's static or not. So you can put that in the description. And this is information that you generally just don't see when it comes to your inventory window, or when you pull up the properties for the animation. You don't get this. You don't get that information in it. So here's a nice place to put it. The priority level, always put, in this case, a pose to number 4. That way you don't have to turn off your avatar animation overrider in order to do one of these poses. So if you put pose balls out on a chair or on a couch and you're wearing your AO, you can just sit down and this will override that. Most animation overrider makers will set their priority to 3, and so this way it overtakes it. 4 is also the highest priority that there is. The next thing that we have is in and out. And remember, this is your loop percentage. Remember I showed you on Qavimator that it's 66% in and 100% out. So generally you would put 66 here. And that lets SL know when to loop your animation. Although for this static pose it doesn't really matter. We're going to talk about these things later on, but here you decide what kind of a hand do you want, or what kind of a hand pose do you want with your animation. So you can change those to different things. Mine doesn't actually look like it's changing at the moment. And it's not. I wonder why it's not changing. Normally it does. Expression, I wouldn't set the expression here, and I'll probably do another video with it, but you can. What do you want your face to express while you're playing the animation? Ease in and ease out is basically for when you're doing one animation to another. So it's not so much important for when it comes to a pose, so you can just leave that as is. And then when you get done doing all of this, you just go ahead and hit upload. And you can see it is 10 lindens to upload this and have it available to you on your Second Life. Alright, so that's it for props and poses, and the next one will be easy way to do animations. Remember to subscribe and to like and to share, and we will see you at the next one. Have fun.